The stars above New Sol looked peaceful that morning. Deho stood at his post on the orbital defense platform, drinking his morning coffee and watching the planet below. He had been a defense officer for 3 years now, and nothing exciting ever happened. Pirates sometimes came close, but they always ran when they saw the defense guns. It was boring work, but Deho liked boring. Boring meant safe. His radar screen blinked. Something was coming out of quantum space at the edge of the system. Deho put down his coffee and leaned forward. The readings made no sense. 1 ship, 10 ships, 50 ships, 100 ships. They kept coming, appearing out of nowhere like ghosts. "Sir, we have contacts," Deho said into his comm. "Really big contacts!" His commander came running. They both stared at the screen. The ships were massive, bigger than anything humanity built, and they were moving fast, heading straight for New Sol. The commander's face went white. He grabbed the comm and started shouting orders to wake up everyone on the platform. Down on the planet, Minji was teaching her class when the alarm started. She was a teacher at Hanbit Elementary School, and her students looked up at her with worried faces. The alarm sound was new, not the usual drill tone they practiced every month. This was the real emergency signal, the one that meant something very bad was happening. "Everyone stay calm," Minji said, but her voice shook. "Let's go to the shelter like we practiced." She led her 30 students toward the underground shelter beneath the school. Other teachers were doing the same, hundreds of children moving through the hallways. Minji looked out the window and saw the sky. It looked normal, blue, peaceful. Then she saw the streaks of light coming down from space and she started running. "Move. Move now," she shouted at her students. The first impact hit 3 kilometers away. The explosion was so loud that Minji felt it in her bones. The school building shook. Windows shattered. Children screamed. Minji grabbed the smallest ones and pushed them forward down the stairs into the dark tunnels below. Above the planet, Deho's platform was already gone. The Vrexian fleet had destroyed all 18 defense platforms in the first 2 minutes of their attack. Deho never even had time to fire a shot. His last thought was about his sister who lived in Hanbit, hoping she was safe. The Vrexian commander Thalcris watched the bombardment from his flagship. His orders were clear. The humans had refused to give up their mining rights to the Nexium deposits. The Empire wanted those resources. The Empire always got what it wanted. If the humans would not surrender the planet, then there would be no humans left to complain. "Target all population centers," Thalcris said. "Leave nothing standing." His weapons officer hesitated for just a moment. "Sir, those are civilian targets. International law." "There is no international law in space," Thalcris said coldly. "There is only the strong and the weak. These humans are weak. Fire." The plasma lances fell from the sky like rain. Each shot carried enough energy to vaporize a city block. Hanbit, the capital city of 8 million people, started dying. The business district went first, turned to glass and fire. Then the residential areas. The hospitals tried to evacuate, but the bombardment was too fast, too complete. In the underground tunnels, Minji held her students close as the world above them ended. The tunnels shook with each impact. Dust fell from the ceiling. The lights flickered and died, leaving them in darkness. Emergency lights came on, casting everything in red. Children cried. Teachers tried to comfort them, but what comfort could they give? Their city was burning above them. The bombardment lasted 4 hours. 4 hours of continuous fire from space. 4 hours of civilization being erased. When it finally stopped, New Sol was silent. No more radio signals. No more transmissions. The space above the planet was filled with debris from destroyed satellites and defense platforms. Thalcris looked at the tactical display. Thermal scans showed that most of the surface was now molten rock or burning ruins. His analysis computers estimated human casualties at 7.3 million dead. Only scattered survivors in deep shelters or rural areas remained. "Good enough. Begin jamming all quantum communications from this system," Thalcris ordered. "I want a complete information blackout. No signals in or out." His communications officer activated the jamming field. It was a powerful system, designed to prevent any information from leaving the system through quantum channels. The Vrexian Empire did not want the other human colonies to know what happened here. Not yet. Not until the mining operations were established and the fleet had moved on. But in the first 12 seconds, before the jamming field reached full strength, an automated beacon launched from one of the dying orbital stations. It was a simple system, designed to activate if the main communications went down. The beacon was small, no bigger than a basketball, but it contained a powerful quantum transmitter. The message was simple. 3 words and a data packet. New soul burning. The data packet contained sensor readings, visual records, and thermal scans of the bombardment. The beacon's computer chose the nearest human military installation and fired its message across the void of space, traveling faster than light through quantum channels. Then the jamming field caught the beacon and crushed its signal. But it was too late. The message was already gone, racing toward Firebase Yongsan 3 light-years away. In the tunnels beneath dead Hanbit, Minji counted her students. All 30 were alive. Around her, other survivors gathered in the main shelter. She saw teachers, shopkeepers, construction workers, and families with young children. Someone had a radio and was trying to get any signal, any news, but there was only static. A man in a Colonial Defense Force uniform stood up. His name tag said Daeho. Minji realized he was not the same Daeho who worked on the orbital platform. This was Lieutenant Daeho, a ground forces officer who had been in the tunnels when the attack started. "Everyone listen," Lieutenant Daeho said. His voice was calm and steady. "We are alive. We are safe for now. These tunnels were built to survive anything, even nuclear strikes. We have air, water, and emergency supplies. We will survive this." "What happened?" someone asked. "Who attacked us?" "I don't know," Daeho admitted. "But I recorded everything on my tactical recorder before the platforms went down. When rescue comes, they will know what happened here." "When rescue comes," a woman said bitterly. "How will anyone know we need rescue? How will anyone know we are even still alive?" Daeho had no answer for that. The communications were dead. The satellites were destroyed. They were alone on a murdered world with no way to call for help. Above them, alien ships began landing, and the sound of mining equipment echoed through the ruins of their civilization. Admiral Hana was reviewing supply reports when her comm officer burst into her ready room without knocking. That alone told her something was terribly wrong. Lieutenant Bora never forgot protocol, never rushed, never showed emotion on duty. But now her face was pale and her hands shook as she held out a data tablet. "Admiral, you need to see this immediately," Bora said. Hana took the tablet and pressed play on the video file. The first image showed New Sol from orbit, the blue and green planet she had visited twice before. Beautiful. Peaceful. Then the view changed to tactical sensors, and she watched as ships appeared from quantum space. Big ships? Alien ships. She watched them move into attack formation. She watched the defense platforms explode. She watched the plasma lances fall. Hana watched the entire recording 3 times. She did not speak. She did not move. She just watched her screen as 8 million people died in fire and light. When the recording ended, she looked up at Bora. "How long ago did this happen?" Hana asked quietly. "The beacon timestamp shows 3 days ago, ma'am. The quantum message just reached us 3 days. For 3 days, the survivors had been alone. For 3 days, humanity had not known that one of their colonies was destroyed. For 3 days, the killers had been sitting on that world, unpunished. Send this to Colonial Command immediately," Hana said. "Maximum priority. Then prepare the fleet for immediate deployment. I want every ship ready to move within 12 hours. "Ma'am, we need authorization from the Council." "I know," Hana said. "But we will be ready anyway." On Earth, the Terran Colonial Council met in emergency session. The chamber was full of representatives from all the human colonies, 37 worlds speaking as one government. They watched the same recording that Hana had seen. Some cried. Some sat in silence. All of them felt the same cold rage building in their hearts. Counselor Taijin stood up. He was old, a veteran of the last war humanity had fought 60 years ago. He remembered what war cost. He remembered the billions who died when nations fought nations. He did not want to see that again. "We must be careful," Taijin said. "Yes, this is a terrible crime. Yes, those responsible must answer for it. But we do not know if this attack was ordered by the Vrexian Empire, or if it was a rogue commander acting alone. We should try diplomatic channels first." "Diplomatic channels?" another counselor shouted. "They murdered 8 million people. They burned an entire world. Which is exactly why we must think clearly," Taijin said. "If we rush into war, millions more could die. Perhaps billions. We should contact the Vrexian Empire. Demand answers, demand justice through proper channels." The debate went on for hours. Some wanted immediate war. Others urged caution. Some spoke of honor and justice. Others spoke of practicality and survival. The chamber grew loud with arguments, with anger, with fear. Then the doors opened and Admiral Hana walked in. She was not invited to this session, but no one tried to stop her. She walked to the center of the chamber and stood there until everyone fell silent. "Play the recording again," Hana said. "Admiral, we have all seen," Tejan began. "Play it again," Hana repeated, her voice hard as steel. They played it. The chamber watched in silence as Hanbit burned. This time, Hana had the technicians enhance the audio. The council heard the intercepted Vrexian communications. They heard alien voices laughing. They heard one Vrexian officer call it pest control. They heard another make a joke about human screams. When the recording ended, Hana spoke. "They murdered 8 million souls. They did it deliberately. They did it joyfully. They jammed all communications to hide their crime. They are sitting on that world right now, mining our resources, walking on the ashes of our dead." She paused and looked around the chamber. "I am going to New Sol. You can authorize it, or you can court-martial me afterward. But I am going." The vote took less than 5 minutes. It was unanimous. For the first time in 60 years, humanity would go to war. But this was different from the old wars. This was not nation against nation, ideology against ideology. This was humanity united, focused on a single purpose. Admiral Hana was given command of 4 full fleets. The 3rd, 7th, 9th, and 12th expeditionary fleets, over 400 warships in total. Every ship was pulled from patrol duties, from training exercises, from routine deployments. Captains received their orders and began immediate preparations. On Firebase Yongsan, Hana's own flagship, Baekdu's Fury, came alive with activity. Crews loaded ammunition. Engineers checked every system twice. Supply ships brought food, water, medical supplies, and spare parts. The dreadnought had been in service for 20 years, had fought pirates and smugglers, but had never been in a real war. Now it would be. Captain Junho commanded the cruiser Thunder of Jeju. He gathered his crew and showed them the recording from New Sol. He wanted them to understand what they were fighting for. He wanted them to see the faces of the dead. When the recording ended, his crew stood in silence. Then they went to their stations and prepared for battle. Throughout human space, the same scene repeated. Captains showed their crews the truth. Soldiers saw what had been done to innocent people. Marines watched children die in fire from space. And something old and terrible woke up in humanity's heart, something that had been sleeping for 60 years of peace. The dragons were stirring. On New Sol, in the tunnels beneath Hanbit, Lieutenant Deho organized the survivors. 3,000 people had made it to the deep shelters. They had food for 6 months, water from underground rivers, and air from geothermal processors. They could survive for a long time. But Deho knew that survival was not enough. "We need to get a message out," he told Minji. She had become his second in command, the person he trusted most among the survivors. "The jamming is too strong," Minji said. "We tried everything. No signals get through." "Then we take down the jamming," Deho said. Minji stared at him. "That is suicide. The Vrexians have hundreds of soldiers up there. We have maybe 50 people with military training." "I know," Deho said. "But if no one knows we are alive, no one will come. And if no one comes, we die down here anyway. At least this way we die trying." He gathered volunteers. 53 people stepped forward, including Minji. They were teachers, miners, shopkeepers, and a few soldiers. None of them were professional warriors. But all of them were angry. All of them had lost family, friends, and students in the bombardment. All of them wanted the galaxy to know what happened here. Deho planned the raid carefully. The Vrexian communication hub was in the ruins of the old city center, heavily defended. But the Vrexians were not expecting an attack. They thought all the humans were dead or hiding. They had grown comfortable. That would be their mistake. 3 weeks after the bombardment, on a night when New Sol's 2 moons were dark, Deho led his people out of the tunnels. They moved through the ruins of their city, past buildings they once knew, past homes that were now tombs. The Vrexian patrols were lazy, predictable. Deho's group avoided them easily. They reached the communication hub at midnight. Minji looked at the building and felt her heart sink. It was a fortress surrounded by walls and guard towers. 60 Vrexian soldiers defended it. This was going to cost them everything. Deho looked at his volunteers. "Remember, we just need 2 minutes. 2 minutes for Minji to send the message. That is all. We can do this." They believed him because they had to, because hope was all they had left. They checked their weapons, said quiet prayers, and prepared to show the Vrexians that humanity did not die easily. The Vrexian garrison on New Sol had settled into comfortable routine. Commander Thalkris kept 75 warships in orbit, more than enough to control one broken world. His ground troops established 6 major mining operations across the planet, pulling Nexium from the Earth in quantities that would make the Empire very wealthy. Everything was proceeding according to plan. Thalkris sat in his command center and reviewed the daily reports. Mining output was ahead of schedule. The few human survivors hiding in the wilderness posed no real threat. His hunter-killer drones had found and eliminated 12 small groups in the past week. Soon there would be no humans left at all, and New Sol would be completely pacified. His second officer approached with news. "Commander, we detected some unusual energy readings in the Hanbit ruins yesterday. Possibly survivors in the underground areas. Send a drone team to investigate," Thalkris said without much interest. "If there are survivors, eliminate them." "Yes, sir." Thalkris went back to his reports. The humans were broken, scattered, helpless. The Empire had won. In a few months, he would rotate back to the core worlds and receive a promotion for his successful pacification campaign. Everything was under control. 3 light-years away, Admiral Hana's fleet exited quantum space at the edge of the New Sol system. 400 warships materialized in the darkness, far enough from the planet to avoid immediate detection. Hana stood on the bridge of Bekdu's Fury and looked at the tactical display showing her target. "Deploy reconnaissance drones," she ordered. "I want to know the position of every Vrexian ship, every orbital platform, every ground installation. Map everything." The drones launched, thousands of them, each no bigger than a human fist. They were the newest technology humanity had developed, completely silent and almost invisible to sensors. They spread through the system like a cloud, watching, recording, analyzing. The data came back slowly over the next 6 hours. Hana studied it carefully. 75 Vrexian warships in orbit, arranged in a loose defensive pattern. They were not expecting an attack. Their shields were at minimal power. Their weapons crews were running routine patrols, not combat stations. The Vrexians were confident, arrogant, good. "Captain Junho," Hana said into her comm. "What do you see?" Junho commanded the cruiser Thunder of Jeju, one of her most experienced captains. He studied the same tactical data on his own ship. "They are vulnerable, Admiral. Their formation has gaps. Their patrol routes are predictable. If we strike hard and fast, we can destroy their orbital assets before they can react." "That is what I thought too," Hana said. "Prepare strike groups. We attack in 6 hours." She divided her fleet into 8 groups, each assigned specific targets. Group Alpha would hit the orbital platforms first, eliminating the Vrexians' ability to target ships from fixed positions. Groups Beta through Delta would engage the capital ships. Groups Epsilon through Eta would handle the cruisers and destroyers. Group Theta would focus on ground support, protecting the Marines when they landed. But Hana had one more piece of intelligence to gather. She needed to know if any humans still survived on the surface. She ordered the reconnaissance drones to scan for human life signs, focusing on the areas most likely to have deep shelters. The drones found scattered readings, small groups in wilderness areas, and one larger concentration beneath the ruins of Hanbit. 3,000 people, still alive, still fighting. Hana felt something loosen in her chest. They were not too late. Some of her people still lived. That changed everything. This was not just a mission of revenge anymore. This was a rescue. "All Marine commanders, this is Admiral Hana," she broadcast on the secure channel. "We have confirmed survivors in the Hanbit underground complex. Approximately 3,000 civilians. They are now our primary objective. Everything else is secondary to their extraction." Captain Wu Jin of the 43rd Drop Regiment received the orders and gathered his officers. His regiment had 10,000 Marines, the best trained soldiers humanity had produced. They had trained for every scenario, from shipboarding to planetary assault. But this was different. This was personal. "We are going into a dead city," Wu Jin told his Marines. "The Vrexians killed millions there. They think they killed everyone. They are wrong. Our people are down there hiding, waiting. We are going to bring them home." His Marines checked their equipment with extra care. Drop pods were loaded and locked. Weapons were cleaned and charged. Medical supplies were doubled. Every Marine knew they might be carrying wounded civilians on the way back up. In orbit around New Sol, a Vrexian patrol ship detected something strange. A brief energy fluctuation at the system's edge, gone before they could analyze it properly. The patrol captain reported it to Commander Thalkris, but the commander dismissed it as cosmic radiation or a sensor glitch. Human ships did not have the technology for stealth at that range. The report was filed and forgotten. On the surface, Lieutenant Deho and his volunteers crouched in the ruins outside the Vrexian communication hub. They had been watching the guard patrols for 3 hours now, learning the timing, counting the soldiers. Minji was beside him, carrying the portable transmitter they had salvaged from an old emergency station. If they could get her inside for just 2 minutes, she could punch a signal through the jamming field. 2 minutes. That was all they needed. Deho looked at his watch. Midnight. Time to move. He gave the signal and his volunteers spread out in the darkness. They moved like shadows through the rubble, getting into position around the communication hub. Most of them would create a distraction while Minji and a small team breached the building itself. The distraction came in the form of homemade explosives planted on the power generator outside the east wall. When the charges detonated, the explosion lit up the night sky. Vrexian soldiers rushed toward the sound, shouting in their harsh language, weapons ready. That was when Minji and her team hit the west wall. They used cutting torches to breach the metal, moving fast and quiet. Inside, the communication hub was a maze of alien technology, but Minji had studied the schematics they found in the colonial archives. She knew where the main transmitter was located. Vrexian guards appeared in the hallway. Deho's team opened fire, old hunting rifles and civilian firearms against military-grade armor. It should not have worked, but they had surprise on their side. 3 Vrexians went down before they could return fire. The others took cover and called for reinforcements. Minji ran, her team protecting her. She reached the main transmitter room and started connecting her equipment. The Vrexian system was different from human technology, but the principles were the same. She bypassed the jamming protocols and activated the emergency beacon function. Come on, she whispered, watching the connection establish. Outside, Deho heard the Vrexian reinforcements coming. Lots of them. His volunteers were falling back, their ammunition running low. They had maybe 1 minute before the Vrexians overran their position. Minji, we need to go now, he shouted into his comm. Almost there, she replied. 30 more seconds. Those 30 seconds cost them everything. The Vrexians pushed hard, overwhelming the human defenders. Deho saw his volunteers dying. Good people fighting with everything they had. He fired his last magazine, dropping 2 more Vrexians, then drew his knife because it was all he had left. Inside the transmitter room, Minji's equipment finally connected. She activated the broadcast and spoke quickly into the microphone. This is New Sol, survivors in Hanbit tunnels. 3,000 souls. Vrexian strength at the door exploded inward. Vrexian soldiers poured in, weapons raised. Minji dove behind the console as plasma bolts burned through the air where she had been standing. She did not know if her message got through. She only knew she tried. Admiral Hana was reviewing the final attack plans when her communications officer called out. Admiral, we are receiving a transmission. It is coming from the surface. From Hanbit. The bridge fell silent. Hana listened to Minji's message, heard the desperation in her voice, heard the weapons fire in the background, heard the transmission cut off abruptly. But it was enough. Now she knew exactly where the survivors were. Now she knew they were running out of time. All ships, combat stations, Hana ordered. We attack in 1 hour. No quarter, no mercy. Show them what happens when you awaken dragons. The Vrexian orbital platform Claw of Dominion was the pride of their defensive network. 50 gun batteries, shield generators powerful enough to withstand a nuclear strike, and sensors that could detect a ship at 10 million kilometers. The crew of 300 considered it the safest posting in the garrison. They were wrong. At exactly 0300 hours, Claw of Dominion exploded. One moment it was there, solid and strong. The next moment it was an expanding cloud of debris and fire. The crew never saw what hit them. They never had time to send a warning. They simply ceased to exist. Then the next platform died. And the next? Within 90 seconds, all 18 Vrexian orbital platforms were destroyed, cut down by weapons fire that came from nowhere. The night sky above New Sol blazed with explosions bright enough to cast shadows on the ground below. Commander Thalkris was asleep when the alarm started screaming. He ran to his flagship's bridge in his sleeping clothes, demanding answers from his panicking crew. His tactical officer pointed at the main display with a shaking hand. "Sir, the platforms are gone. All of them. We are detecting massive quantum signatures throughout the system. Hundreds of ships. They are coming right at us." "What ships?" Thalcris shouted. "Where did they come from?" His sensors officer worked frantically at his console. "I am reading 400 contacts, sir. They were hidden somehow. Our sensors never detected them until they opened fire. Their quantum signatures match. They match human technology." Thalcris felt ice in his stomach. 400 human warships. That was impossible. The humans were peaceful traders and explorers. They had small colonial defense forces, nothing more. Where had this fleet come from? Then space itself seemed to tear open as the human ships decloaked in perfect formation. Thalcris saw them on his view screen. Hundreds of warships arranged in battle groups, their weapons already firing. Railgun slugs accelerated to impossible speeds. Plasma torpedoes leaving trails of light. Missile swarms so dense they looked like clouds. "All ships, battle formation," Thalcris screamed. "Return fire!"
"Full shields!"
His fleet tried to respond, but they were caught completely unprepared. Half the ships had their crews at minimal staffing. Their shields were at low power. Their weapons were in standby mode. The humans had timed their attack perfectly, hitting when the Vrexians were most vulnerable. The Hammer of Conquest, a Vrexian heavy cruiser, took 3 railgun slugs through its engine section before it could raise shields. The impacts punched straight through the armor like it was paper. The cruiser's reactor went critical and exploded, taking 2 nearby destroyers with it in the blast. Captain Junho commanded Thunder of Jeju in the thick of the battle. His cruiser was part of Strike Group Beta, assigned to eliminate Vrexian capital ships. He had trained for this his entire career, but training was nothing like the reality. The space around him was filled with fire and death, ships dying on both sides, weapons fire crossing the darkness at speeds that made aiming more art than science. "Target that battleship," Junho ordered. "Full spread plasma torpedoes." His weapons officer fired, and 12 torpedoes streaked toward the Vrexian battleship Ironfang. The Vrexian point defense systems destroyed 8 of them, but 4 got through. The torpedoes detonated against the battleship's shields, and the shields collapsed in a flash of blue light. Junho's railguns fired immediately, 3 slugs hitting the now unprotected hull. The battleship broke in half, atmosphere venting from both sections. On the Bekdu's Fury, Admiral Hana watched the battle unfold on her tactical displays. Her fleet was performing exactly as planned. The Vrexians were fighting back hard, their weapons dangerous and their crews brave, but they were outmatched. 75 ships against 400 caught by surprise, fighting an enemy whose rage made them relentless. "Admiral, we are receiving multiple surrender requests from Vrexian ships," her communications officer reported. "Deny them all," Hana said coldly. "They showed no mercy to civilians. They received none here." But even as she spoke, she marked 1 ship on her tactical display. Commander Thalcris's flagship. She wanted that ship disabled, not destroyed. She wanted Thalcris alive to carry a message. "All units focus fire on the enemy flagship. Disable engines and weapons, but do not destroy it. I want that ship intact." Her orders went out, and 6 human warships concentrated their fire on Thalcris's flagship. Railgun slugs destroyed the engine pods. Plasma torpedoes took out the weapons batteries. Missiles crippled the shield generators. Within 10 minutes, the Vrexian flagship was a drifting hulk, powerless and defenseless but still intact. Inside the crippled ship, Thalcris watched his fleet die around him. 75 ships had become 50, then 30, then 15. His captains fought bravely, but it did not matter. The humans were not here to fight a fair battle. They were here to deliver punishment, and they were very good at it. While the space battle raged above, Captain Wu Jin led the 43rd Drop Regiment toward the surface. His 10,000 Marines were packed into drop pods, ready for the most dangerous part of the operation. Orbital drops were always risky, but dropping into a combat zone on a planet defended by enemy forces was borderline suicidal. But the survivors were down there waiting, and nothing was going to stop Wu Jin from reaching them. "All units prepare for drop," he announced. "Remember your training. Remember your mission. Bring our people home." The drop pods launched, thousands of them falling from orbit like a meteor shower. Vrexian ground forces saw them coming and opened fire with surface-to-air weapons. Plasma cannons and missile batteries tried to knock the pods out of the sky. Some succeeded, Woojin watched the casualty reports climb as pods were destroyed during descent. 20 Marines lost, 50-100, but most of the pods made it through. They slammed into the surface around the ruins of Hanbit, and the Marines burst out ready to fight. Woojin's pod landed in what used to be a shopping district. Now it was just rubble and ash. He could see Vrexian soldiers taking positions in the ruined buildings, preparing to defend their ground installations. Advance by squads, Woojin ordered. Clear every building. Suppress enemy positions. We push to the tunnel entrance and we do not stop. The fighting was brutal. The Vrexians had good positions and good weapons. The Marines had better training and absolute determination. They moved through the dead city in coordinated teams, using the rubble for cover, supporting each other with covering fire. Every meter was paid for in blood, but they kept advancing. In the tunnels below, Lieutenant Deho heard the explosions above. He did not know what was happening, only that it sounded like a war had started on the surface. He gathered the survivors in the main chamber and tried to keep them calm. Minji had made it back to the tunnels after the raid on the communication hub. She was wounded, a plasma burn across her shoulder, but alive. 40 of their volunteers had not made it back. 40 more names to add to the millions already dead. But her message had gotten through. She knew it had. She heard the fighting above and knew that someone had answered. "Do you think it is our people?" she asked Deho. "Do you think they came for us?" "I hope so," Deho said. "Because if those are more Vrexians, we are all going to die down here." Then the tunnel wall exploded inward. Deho raised his weapon, ready to fight to the last, but the figure that stepped through the smoke was wearing human armor. A human Marine carrying a rifle, his helmet showing a friendly smile through the faceplate. "Lieutenant Deho?" the Marine asked. "Yes," Deho said, hardly believing what he was seeing. "Captain Woojin, 43rd Drop Regiment. Let's get your people home." The evacuation began immediately. Marines secured the perimeter while medics moved into the tunnels to assess the survivors. Many were wounded. All were malnourished and traumatized. The medics worked quickly, stabilizing the worst cases, organizing stretchers for those who could not walk. Minji helped organize the children, getting them ready to move. She saw human soldiers everywhere, professional and efficient, treating the survivors with care and respect. One Marine knelt down to talk to a scared little girl, showing her pictures of his own daughter to make her smile. Above them, the battle for Hanbit continued. The Vrexians fought hard, knowing they were losing but refusing to surrender. The Marines pushed forward relentlessly, clearing building after building, securing the landing zones for the evacuation shuttles. Captain Woojin stood at the tunnel entrance, watching his Marines bring out the survivors. 3,000 people alive against all odds, saved from a dead world. He thought about the 8 million who were not so lucky, and he felt the same cold rage that drove Admiral Hana. In orbit, the space battle was ending. Of the 75 Vrexian ships, only 6 remained intact, and 5 of those were trying to run. Hana let them go. Let them run back to their empire. Let them tell their leaders what happened when you murdered human civilians. The 6th ship, Thalcris's flagship, hung dead in space. Hana opened a communication channel directly to its bridge. She could see Thalcris on her view screen, the Vrexian commander looking defeated and broken. "You came to New Sol," Hana said quietly. "You murdered 8 million civilians. You thought no one would answer for their deaths. You were wrong." Commander Thalcris stood on the bridge of his dying ship and looked at the human admiral on his view screen. Around him, his crew worked frantically to restore basic systems, but it was useless. The engines were gone. The weapons were destroyed. Life support was running on emergency power. His mighty flagship was nothing more than a metal coffin drifting in space. "I wish to negotiate surrender terms," Thalcris said, trying to keep his voice steady. Admiral Hana's expression did not change. "You showed no mercy to civilians. You received none here, but you will live long enough to carry a message back to your empire." Thalcris felt a cold fear in his heart. "What message?" "Watch," Hana said simply. She cut the channel, leaving Thalcris staring at a blank screen. Then his sensors officer called out in alarm. "Commander, the human fleet is moving. They are taking up positions around the planet." Thalcris pulled up the tactical display and felt his blood turn to ice. The human ships were not leaving. They were arranging themselves in a precise formation, their weapons all pointed down at New Sol, at the Vrexian ground installations, at the mining operations, at everything his forces had built over the past 3 weeks. They are going to destroy it all. His tactical officer whispered. "Open a channel," Thalcris demanded. "I must speak to the Admiral." "This is a violation of what?" His communications officer said bitterly. "We bombarded civilian cities. We murdered millions. What law can we appeal to now?" On the surface, Captain Wujin received the evacuation order. All human forces were pulling back to the designated safe zones. The shuttles were already lifting off, carrying the survivors to the hospital ships waiting in orbit. Wujin gathered his Marines and began the withdrawal, moving quickly through the ruins. As they ran, Wujin looked back at the Vrexian installations. He saw the mining equipment, the barracks, the command centers, all the infrastructure the Vrexians had built on the ashes of human civilization. In a few minutes it would all be gone. "Sir, why are we pulling back?" one of his Marines asked. "Because the Admiral is about to send a message," Wujin said, "and we do not want to be here when she does." The last shuttle lifted off from Hanbit's surface at 8:47 hours. At 8:50 hours, Admiral Hana gave the order. 400 human warships opened fire simultaneously, targeting every Vrexian military installation on New Sol. Not the cities, not the infrastructure, just the Vrexian presence. The bombardment was precise and surgical. Railgun slugs destroyed the mining equipment. Plasma torpedoes vaporized the barracks. Missiles took out the command centers and communication hubs. Every piece of Vrexian technology, every structure they had built, every trace of their occupation was systematically erased from the planet. It took 47 minutes. When it was over, New Sol still had its cities, still had its roads and bridges and buildings, but every single Vrexian installation was gone, reduced to smoking craters. The planet belonged to humanity again. Thalcris watched it all from his disabled ship. Hana forced him to watch, kept a communication channel open so he could see what happened when you attacked human civilians. When the bombardment ended, Hana's face appeared on his screen again. "You came here for resources," she said. "You murdered 8 million people for metal in the ground. I want you to understand something very clearly. We could have destroyed your ship. We could have killed you and all your crew. But I'm letting you live for one reason." "What reason?" Thalcris asked quietly. "So you can carry a message to your empire," Hana said. "You will return to your core worlds. You will tell your leaders exactly what happened here. You will tell them that humanity does not forget. We do not forgive, and we will never stop coming until justice is done." She terminated the channel. Thalcris's ship was given just enough power to limp back to Vrexian space, but nothing more. No weapons. No shields. Just engines and life support. He would have to cross 3 light years in a crippled ship. A journey that would take weeks instead of days. Plenty of time to think about what he had done. On the hospital ship Mercy of Sol, Minji sat in a medical bay with her wounded shoulder treated and bandaged. Around her, the other survivors were being cared for by doctors and nurses. Children were reunited with parents. Families held each other and cried. They were alive. Against all odds, they were alive. Lieutenant Deho found her there. He had his own wounds treated, minor burns and cuts from the raid on the communication hub. He sat down beside Minji and they both stared out the viewport at New Sol below. "What happens now?" Minji asked. "Now we rebuild," Deho said. "The Admiral says there will be a permanent defense fleet stationed here. New Sol will never be vulnerable again." "But the people who died," Minji said softly. "The 8 million. They are still dead." "Yes," Deho agreed. "They are. But the galaxy will remember what happened to them. And the galaxy will know what happens when you attack humanity." Admiral Hana composed her message to the Vrexian Empire from her ready room. She chose her words carefully, making sure there was no room for misunderstanding. The message was simple and direct. To the Vrexian Empire, you attacked the human colony of New Sol without provocation. You murdered 8 million civilians in a deliberate act of genocide. You violated every law of civilized warfare. This cannot stand. You will return all recovered bodies of our dead for proper burial. You will withdraw from all border systems within human space. You will pay reparations sufficient to rebuild New Sol 3 times over. If you refuse any of these demands, we will come to your core worlds and show you what 8 million deaths costs. You have 1 month to respond. She sent the message through every channel, every diplomatic frequency, every communication network. She wanted the entire galaxy to know what happened. She wanted everyone to understand that humanity was done being peaceful and patient. 6 months passed. The Vrexian Empire initially refused the demands, called them unreasonable, threatened war. But Admiral Hana was already mobilizing more fleets. Humanity was calling up reserves, building new ships, preparing for a war that would span light years. The Vrexian Emperor, faced with the possibility of total war against an enemy whose fury was absolute, reconsidered. His intelligence services showed him reports of human fleet movements, of new weapons being tested, of entire colonies dedicating their resources to military production. The humans were not bluffing. They were preparing to burn the Empire to ashes. The Empire sued for peace. They returned 4.2 million bodies recovered from New Sol's ruins. They withdrew from 12 border systems. They paid reparations in rare metals and technology, enough wealth to rebuild New Sol and fund its defense for a century. The price was steep, but the alternative was extinction. On New Sol, the survivors returned to their world. They came back to a planet guarded by a permanent defense fleet of 200 warships. They came back to cities that were damaged but still standing. They came back to rebuild what had been destroyed. Minji returned to teaching, though her school was now a temporary building while the old one was reconstructed. Her students were different now, harder and quieter, but they were learning. They were surviving. And in surviving, they were honoring the dead. Lieutenant Daiho, now Major Daiho, commanded the new orbital defense grid. He stood watch over his world with weapons powerful enough to destroy any fleet that dared approach. He would never be caught unprepared again. Never. A memorial was built in the center of Hanbit, where the old city square once stood. It was a wall of black stone, 8 million names carved into its surface in letters small enough that you had to stand close to read them. At the base of the memorial, an inscription chosen by Minji. They thought us sheep. They learned we were dragons. Admiral Hana retired after ensuring New Sol's defenses were complete. She left the military and returned to civilian life. But her legacy remained. The New Sol doctrine, established by the Terran Colonial Council, stated clearly, any attack on human civilians would be met with overwhelming unified response. Every colony, every fleet, every human standing as one, the galaxy learned its lesson. Humanity at peace was generous, kind, willing to trade and cooperate with all species. Humanity at peace built schools and hospitals, explored new worlds, shared knowledge freely. But humanity aroused was something else entirely. Humanity aroused was a dragon, ancient and patient, capable of terrible violence in defense of its own. The Vrexian Empire had awakened that dragon, and the scars they bore would remind them forever of their mistake. In her small apartment on New Sol, Minji stood at her window and looked up at the night sky. She could see the defense platforms up there, bright dots of light moving across the stars. She could see the patrol ships making their rounds, eternal guardians keeping watch. She thought about her students who died in the bombardment, their names carved on the memorial wall. She thought about the 40 volunteers who never came back from the raid on the communication hub. She thought about the 8 million souls who would never see another sunrise. And she thought about the message humanity had sent to the galaxy, written in fire and blood and unwavering determination, a message that echoed across the stars, simple and eternal. We remember, we endure, and we protect our own. The dragons had awakened, and they would never sleep again.